and welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast. Happy holidays, everyone. Now, this week we have a very, very special guest. Someone that I got to say, I'm personally so proud that we've been buddies on the radio show, Sports Econ 101, for I think it's been over 5 years. I think it's more like about 6 or 7 years when I first started taking over with Bruce McGowan and sitting next to you in the production booth. I think maybe around 2019, 2018, was that about a hit year?
I like to call it at my age and my experience, I just call it a nice long run.
Yeah, nice long run. Yes,
there you go.
Introduce him as the legend, Vern Glenn. Vernon Glenn. Everybody loves him. I'm 500 miles away, and I miss this guy on my nightly newscast terribly. Mr. Involvement. He did everything. Obviously, we were just talking offline. I remember him with his camera, his photographing, editing, producing. He's not Mr. Involvement on camera, but behind the scenes, and a total broadcasting legend.
Broadcasting, Northern California Broadcasting Hall of Famer. We have him in the Hall of Fame up here. So
he's a Bay Area. I'm Dr. Mike Leno, but Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame, Vern, is that?
No, we're not. No, that's the big one. I'm not in the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame, but I am in the. I am in a Hall of Fame. It's called the Silver Circle. You have a silver and a gold circle, and right now I've been inducted to the Silver Circle. That was a few years ago, and that was for longevity in the market and contributions and yada yada yada. So if you do that 25 or more years, you're Silver Circle. If you do it 50 years, like a few people I know, you're in the Gold Circle. So there you go.
Hold on to a job.
On news in any market for 50 years, really? That's a small pool of legends there.
Yeah, now we're talking about guys like Don Sanchez. Remember him from Channel 7?
From KGO.
Yeah. Now that's the kind of guy that's got 50 under his belt.
He's in Palm Springs still. If he's still alive.
He's everywhere. I just saw him. I just saw him at the Sausalito Yacht Club as we tip back a few.
He was like you. He could do like everything. He was doing sports. He was doing arts, obviously.
Doing news.
Movie reviews. But before that, he was doing straight news, like a Macklehead.
Yeah. He was a jack of all trades and a master of them too. Good guy.
I know Russ is going to, but I want to know, as somebody who's been a friend of yours, been amazed at the work that you've done, maybe you could just tell people around the world your story from a kid on. Did you grow up in the Bay Area, and how did you get into sports, news, everything that you do?
Okay, I'll try to make it the 25-cent version because I don't think we have time to really kind of go through the whole
that's about all for this appearance.
But basically, long story long, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, about an hour and a half south of Washington, D.C., and as I was growing up, my influences were, through my dad and through my cousins, and it was always about sports. My dad was from Baltimore, and so naturally, I followed the Baltimore Colts. Kids, the Colts were actually in Baltimore before Indianapolis. So I like the Colts. I like the then Baltimore Bullets of the NBA. Obviously, the Baltimore Orioles. So and we would go up and visit Baltimore all the time and just hang out there. And so those guys were my influences. And so by the time I got to high school, 10th grade, I just figured it out that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a local sportscaster. I wanted to have some degree of success and just wake up every day with my feet hitting the floor, just going, all right, what's next? And it's just been an adventure since April 13th, 1985, starting in my hometown, the ABC affiliate WXEX, now it's WRIC. And I left there and I went to Baltimore, and I thought, I was like, wow, here I am in Baltimore. Isn't that ironic, where I spent so much time in my childhood? And this was 87. And I thought, well, I'm just going to be here, for the rest of my career. I mean, I was 2.5 hours from my hometown and had friends and cousins and family in the area. And Baltimore was just a great, proud, blue collar town, just staunchly separate from Washington, D.C., which was 45 minutes away. And so, there I was, covering the Orioles and and reluctantly covering the then Redskins because when the Colts were in Baltimore, we didn't want to have anything to do with the Redskins. But anyway, so there I was, and kind of the star was rising a little bit, and I was having a good time. I was working with broadcast legends, I mean true legends in that market. And then my agent at the time, in almost comic book fashion, says, "Hey kid, I've shown you some of your stuff to the station in San Francisco where I placed a lot of my clients." I'm mimicking him a cigar in my hand. And he says, hey kid, hey, I showed him some of your stuff. And
I'm thinking of J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was like that. Yeah, hey kid, yeah. So I placed a lot of clients in the NBC affiliate in San Francisco, Cron, and I showed them some of your stuff. And you know what? They really liked you. I think they're going to make an offer. Sure enough, by the end of '89, offer came through shortly before my birthday, which is mid-January. Took the offer, and then by the end of the month, I was at KRON, and that was 1990. And so I came in here with a 3-year plan and a 3-year contract, just thinking I'll just see what this whole big deal, this whole left coast tree hugging, hot tubbing place, was all about. And then I'll go back to New York or Philadelphia or Washington, D.C., back to the Eastern Seaboard. But I'll just get a little taste of being in a top 10 market. So my first Christmas in 1990, I was living on Fillmore between Jackson and Pacific. And it was just one of those days where it was 75 degrees, blue skies. I'm walking up and down Fillmore Street on Christmas Day in shorts and a T-shirt. And that was then I said, you know what? I think I'm going to stick around here a lot longer than the contract. And I never left. So fast forward years later, I spent 23 years at Cron, got recruited over to KPIX, the CBS affiliate. And I've been there for the last, over 10 years at Channel 5 KPIX. So that's a good solid about 33 years in this market.
You must, I don't know, you still live in the city proper, but yeah, I love that. The Upper Fillmore and all that cool stuff, California, Sacramento Street at Fillmore, all the fun. I totally miss the Bay Area, man. I miss you, miss watching all the favorites on news broadcasts. Just heard, because I get all these feeds, Mike Nico leaving, doing the weather, I don't know how many years at 7 KGO. He's moved where, to the Midwest someplace?
Yeah. Yeah. So some of them, it's sometimes, life gets in the way. Fortunately for me, I met a young lady who was a local, started dating her. She's now my wife. And we live in Marin County. I mean, this is where her family is. And this is where we've kind of planted roots. Other people get married to other people. And you know how it is when you're married. You're kind of dictated by the wife. If the wife's not from here and wants to go home, then guess what? You're going home, and wherever that is. And so you have to move out of the market, and so that's just kind of my story.
Bay Area's lucky to have you, Russ. I'll throw over to you.
Oh yeah. So I mean, you have worked and interviewed literally everyone in the business. Now, we are a wrestling show, so I thought, just for the wrestling fans out there, we could have you give a few relatable stories of wrestlers that you've interviewed.
Sure.
What your experiences were with it.
My first interview, you'll love this. My first interview was with Ric Flair. This was 1986, and the NWA had a series of matches at the Richmond Coliseum, and I went down there to interview Ric Flair, then like one of the biggest names certainly in our region. And so I go down there with my camera. I didn't have a cameraman. You had to shoot. It's a small market, so I went down there and I go up to him and I go, "Mr. Flair, I'm doing a little thing on wrestling. Can I interview you for a few minutes?" And this is before he was about to go on. And he kind of stretched and goes, $500. I go, and then I freeze. I'm like, "No, man, no kid. I'm just kidding." And then, and he gave me a couple of good sound bites about how how wrestling is a great sport. It's terrific for the entertainment dollar. We put on a good show and this, that, and the other. He was just, I guess, broke character and gave me a good couple of sound bites. And then he went on and put on a good show. So he was my very first wrestling interview. And it wasn't until I was in Baltimore where I first came across Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, he was in town again. The tour was there. They had some bouts at the Coliseum in Baltimore, and he comes out. He's like 6'7", maybe 6'8". He comes out, and it's me. I had to stand in a chair just to interview him, and so we're just talking. He's going back and we're going back and forth, and he's in complete character. Well, let me tell you something. And it was like, okay, and then he just comes out and says, yeah, how's your love life? And then I wasn't blessed with great comebacks at the time. I think I said, oh, it's like a light bulb, in and out. And he just kind of like that. Anyway, but yeah, so I interviewed Hulk Hogan then. I've interviewed him several times since then, particularly when WrestleMania 33 came to the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And that's where I got my bevy of interviews. Again, with him, Sergeant Slaughter, who's Daniel Bryan, the Bella Twins, who I interviewed just this past summer because they were grand marshals for the NASCAR race that was at Sonoma Raceway. So yeah, man, it's been Stephanie McMahon, interviewed her. John Cena, that was more of kind of a group interview. He was with one of the Bella Twins at the time, and yeah, it's just been great. I mean, my feelings about professional wrestling, it's outside of like a really good reality show. It's like the next best thing. It is great. It is great theater. It is great theater, and Stephanie gave me a great interview. We did the interview right at the top of Nob Hill. And she was telling me, hey, look, we tell stories. We built an arc of a story for the balance of the season. And we like to climax the story at our WrestleManias. And that's just kind of how it is. And there's nothing fake about it. Everything is predetermined, which is fine. Which is fine. But these women and these men are athletes, having to learn how to fall right, and choreographing and going along script. I think it's kind of funny. Well, sometimes, for the most part, it's funny when some of these guys go off script when they're doing stuff they're not supposed to do. I mean, sometimes they can get in trouble for that. But yeah, it's been terrific.
Vern, that was up at the Fairmont. I was there for that thing.
Yeah.
Prior to WrestleMania at Santa Clara, and you're right. There was Stephanie, Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, Hogan, and a couple of others up there. I don't know if the Mark Henry might have been there. Big show, but it was a big thing, and they had it at Levi Stadium. Right. But they came up. They had all the wrestlers like the Usos in cable cars coming up to the Fairmont. Remember that? That was their.
They sure did. Yep. They sure did, and they had all the World Wrestling Federation signage and stuff like that. It was all draped all over the hell. They did a really good job of that because everything was on the top floor of that hotel, and you went from room to room to room to room to get your interviews.
Yeah, well, they'd have the sit down. Back to Baltimore though, that was a major NWA hub. Not just obviously WWF going there, but even more so going back to the Ole Anderson early '80s days to the Crockett, Ted Turner stuff. But Baltimore was, just like Cobo in Detroit, it was a huge recurring venue for all of those guys, the Road Warriors and Tully and Arn, all of that stuff, all those big stars. Sting. I'm sure you've interviewed all these guys.
I'm just fascinated by the history of this sport. I mean, I'm really big about history. So from whether it's Wahoo McDaniel to Blackjack Mulligan to all these guys that I followed when I was a kid. I just love the history of Ernie Ladd, former Kansas City Chief. Remember Ernie Ladd? He had the thumb. That was his move, the thumb.
I wrote him back and forth. Ernie Ladd was in our territory because I was one of the ringside photographers for the Los Angeles territory, or territories. in the late 60s, early 70s. And Ernie, of course, was broken in primarily by Lou Thez and was working as a babyface in the 60s, when he was outside of, I forget if he was AFL or NFL at that time before the merge, but then he became
It was AFL with the Chiefs before the merger.
He was one of the greatest talkers, besides a great worker and a great heel. When he turned over heel and had all these bouts, he could go anywhere main event with Bruno in the Northeast or in Los Angeles in 72 with Tolis and Blassie, John Tolis and Fred Blassie. And just an amazing talker. And I forget what Hall of Fame he was. I think it was the Iowa Wrestling Hall of Fame. He said he enjoyed his wrestling career more than his football career.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, he put on a show. And then there's Wahoo McDaniel, another guy I grew up with. And he was the former Miami Dolphin linebacker. And he had the chop. That was his big thing, the chop, And he'd show up, he'd have a headdress on, could show up to the ring, and he would just take care of business. I can remember my dad taking me to a wrestling match. I must have been 9 years old. And it was Rufus R. Jones against Blackjack Mulligan. And Rufus R. Jones, he had this black glove, and somehow the black glove gave him power. And he was like, and so he'd go, all right, Blackjack, I got this special glove. He called it a glove. He couldn't say glove. Yeah, I got the special glove. And so he pound Blackjack, and somehow in the script it was Blackjack that would always that would win. But it was great. It was great drama, great theater. And as an 8-year-old kid, you're just like, I'm holding like an imaginary bag of popcorn. I'm just like, wow, what's gonna happen next?
Was that the Crockett family promotion that brought up Rufus against Mulligan?
I don't remember. I was 8. I don't remember.
Here's an interesting bit of story. Rufus R. Jones, very talented wrestler who was a main eventer most of his career in Kansas City for promoter Bob Geigel, former NWA president. But in the 60s, mid to late 60s, there was a promoter, Jack Pfeffer, who would try to rip off other promoters, and he would advertise name stars. Instead of Lou Thez, it would be Len Thez. Instead of Bruno Sammartino, it would be Bruno San Martino, and so on. So he advertised somebody called Hobo Brazil, and instead it was Rufus R. Jones doing his best attempt to be Bobo Brazil. It was like Jackie Robinson for pro wrestling. But right. He's a great wrestler on his own. If he'd have just been utilizing his given wrestling name, he would have probably sold out even then.
My favorite Bugs Bunny cartoon of all time is when Bugs Bunny was in The Wrestler again. He was in the ring, and God, who was that?
It was a man.
The Crusher. Yes, yeah, it was the Crusher.
Like this, and his muscles all just pound. And he says, "This is some time for some strategy."
Right. Exactly.
Mask open and makes the guy think that he's got a rip in his shorts.
The Crusher would have him, and then Bugs would grab. Somehow he would grab some pants, and he'd rip the pants, make the Crusher think that he had ripped his pants.
Yeah,
it was just.
Wait, what about the 2 Three Stooges episodes? Both on the same sort of story, where Curly's a wrestler. One of them, he has to smell his perfume to turn into Superman worker, and the other one, they had to play some.
Yes, they had to play Pop Goes the Weasel.
Yeah,
Pop Goes the Weasel, and then Curly was so crazy on that. So yes, I know.
So very quick note, Vern, in terms of history, you come to the right place, because worked or predetermined choreographed pro wrestling started in, as far back as we can trace it, 1880s France, not the U.S.
Okay.
France. And post-war, Ricky Dozan, Japanese god, actually of Korean descent, came to LA. We put the world title on him in 1960, and he created this promotion, starting with Lou Thez and Fred Blassie and the Dusick brothers, to get Japanese wrestling over, the first Japanese wrestling promotion. And now Japan's got 20, 30 promotions there, from shoot to garbage groups that, go through flaming tables to incredible women's groups. Japan is like the place on the planet at the Tokyo Dome. That's where you got to go. You really want to see some blow your mind out wrestling. And they started the tradition of 2 days of their version of WrestleMania before Vince Jr. tried it with WWF a couple of years ago. They were the first. So Japan, the place, and but there's a lot of insane history. It's an insane choreographed work business, but 1880s France. Few people know that, but that's kind of where junk started.
Vern, if we leave the world of wrestling and go to all the other many interviews you've done, who are your favorite people that you've ever done sports interviews with?
Oh, wow. Every day, Russell, it's a different answer. But today, wow. I just finished an interview up in Napa with the starting tight end for the Georgia Bulldogs. His name is Brock Bowers. He's just a star sophomore for this team. He's from Napa. It's a good story. As a freshman, he led Georgia Bulldogs to the national championship, and now they're trying to get another one as they will take on Ohio State on New Year's Eve. But boy, top 5. Let's see. Well, Willie Mays has to be on the list. Jim Brown has to be on the list. Let's see.
What's Jim Brown like? What was Jim Brown like?
He was larger than life, a borderline intimidating. One of those guys that would just whenever he opened his mouth, he could just open his mouth and say chewing gum, and you would just be, fascinated by what did he say? He said chewing gum. Oh, great, And it even I remember covering a Cleveland Browns game. The Raiders were in Cleveland to play the Browns, and Jim Brown was there. And even then, as he walked around, people spoke of him in hushed tones. I mean, that's the guy had a presence about him. So those two for sure. I'll throw Ronnie Lott on the list there. Wayne Gretzky also on the list. Let's see. And then let's see. Let's go. Let's throw a woman in there. Let's go Mary Lou Retton.
We just talked about Mary Lou Retton on the show.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I just thought of it, but that would be that. Now tomorrow, my mind could change to somewhere else, but as of doing this show, that's my 5. That's a good grouping.
Have you interviewed Venus and Serena? And I want to throw in Billy Martin when he was managing. I don't know how many times he managed the A's.
Sadly, I did not get to Billy Martin before he left us, so I didn't do that. But Venus and Serena, definitely. In fact, Serena and I, before the cameras got rolling, we were going back and forth on a show that we were watching. I'm not sure if it was Nip Tuck or whatever, but it was a show that we were watching together, and she was a few episodes behind. And I was about to say something, and she goes, "No, don't spoil it for me." I was like, oh, "Okay." But so we kind of bonded over that. Serena Williams, probably one of the largest female athletes I've seen in person, because she's when she walked, whether it was her arms or her thighs, they pulsated like they had hearts in them. I mean, she was just a large, just physical specimen.
Wow, very impressive. Now, you were talking about shows that you bonded over. Now, I found out a few years ago that you're a huge Rick and Morty fan.
I am.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a few episodes behind on season 6. I don't know about you, Russell, but season 6 is kind of, it's, yeah, I get, intergalactic and all this kind of stuff, but there's so many, there's so many flashbacks, flash forwards. It's episodes where Morty runs into or Rick or Morty, they run into a like-minded character from a few years before. It's just sometimes if you're not paying attention, you can get really lost. Would I be right in saying that?
Well, but I did think the self-referential 6 was one of the most brilliant episodes. It had a lot of that, but just the names of all the characters, like previous Leon, and,
Yep.
and what he would say is he'd say previously on, and I would move the show into what, and that was super confusing. But that's, Rick and Morty, the producers, their whole like dab on science fiction tropes, where they keep doing that, in shows where a show won't let you focus on a timeline. They'll constantly flash backwards and flash forwards and flash sideways and diagonal. Like, I don't know, it's like Lost was like that. So they're always doing these kind of little like twisted tributes to these science fiction things that you see over and over again. Like that, also the heist episode. One of my favorite ones is the episode where they make fun of the heist and the whole heist genre, and Rick is having that argument with the computer that he made to like the other one, and they're constantly saying, "But I wanted you to think that you were going to think this, so I did this to counteract this." Well, that's exactly what I wanted you to think, so I went and did all this. And it's that layer of ultra cleverness that they're making fun of, but they're also showing that they can out clever just about anyone that's out there. And I don't know if, Mike, you ever watch Rick and Morty, but it's become.
No, like, I have. I was going to ask you guys, what is going on with Adult Swim? They doesn't seem to be any new content product hardly. They're running. I still love Mike Tyson Mysteries or Tim and Eric, great show, or some of the other stuff on there, whether cartoons like Tuca and
there's Smiling Friends.
Yeah, but no, they have really reduced their hours of like original, goofy, off the wall, fun, creative stuff.
Back. They're showing a lot of old Futurama episodes because Futurama is going to come back on the Cartoon Network sometime next year. So they're trying to remind people to get ready to watch that.
Boomerang. Boomerang used to play like 50s, 60s cartoons.
Yeah, a lot of Flintstones and Jetsons and stuff like that. Yeah.
Vern is a little bit younger than I am, but Top Cat.
Yeah, I watched that.
Top Cat, because if you close your eyes and listen to Top Cat and listen to Greg Papa do play-by-play on 49er game. Am I wrong? I mean, it's the same. It's the same.
That's hilarious. Greg Papa is Top Cat. That now I'll never be able to mentally unsee that.
Well, the guy that played Top Cat or the other guy, those guys were in the movies. They were portrayed typically on cameras as nerdy guys. Yet Top Cat was like, he was strutting the walk and nailing all female cats and all of that. You would think this guy's a playboy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that was the time. Those were the time. We all wanted to be Hugh Hefner. We all wanted to be Top Dog. So
not after that A&E docuseries.
Well, no, but at the time, late '60s, that was the that was the thing.
I grew up in Century City near Brentwood, and we'd go and take a look from the outside at the mansion. I finally got to cover an MMA event at the mansion. But to watch that docuseries, I go, Jesus, are all of my heroes going to be Me Too'd? Everybody's Me Too'd.
Yeah.
Now,
that's
no, go ahead.
That the Playboy man in today's world, a Playboy mansion could only exist the way we know that it existed is if you checked your cell phones in at the gate when you walk in.
Yeah,
that's when they opened up a new station down here, and Dave Chappelle and they opened it and they said everything. There was really strict stuff on the filming of it. Chris Rock and him together, what a 1-2 punch of the greatest comics on the planet right there. They opened it. But yeah, there's that problem. Comics now we don't need to belabor that. They're afraid to do any material, A, because someone's going to film them, and B, someone's going to film them saying something that might be deemed inappropriate by somebody who's 11 years old or something. I don't know. So,
well, I give Dave Chappelle all the credit in the world for him demanding that you turn in your cell phones before any kind of show. Chappelle and Rock, they were just here. They did a show at Chase Center, so they were at a Warriors game courtside before one of their shows. I interviewed before, and the camera was rolling, and I'd ask him press junket stuff about the movie he was on or whatever. I even forget what the movie was. I think it might have been the remake of The Longest Yard, which he was in. And yeah, he wasn't he wasn't giving me much. And then I brought up the Warriors in basketball, and then he like lit up. You couldn't stop him. You couldn't shut him up.
This Chris Rock?
Yeah.
Wow. The funniest guy on the planet. Chase Center next March. They are the new #2 group globally, at least out of the States, AEW. They're having their big pay-per-view at Chase Center now. So I hope, have you watched any of this alternative? We don't have to talk about wrestling so much, but this alternative to WWE. WWE is far better without Vince there now writing, but their competitor, they've got all the talent in the world, and that's coming up. So I don't know if you're going to be going to that.
Yeah. AEW. I've watched some of the stuff, and I see where they're going. It's just I'm too old to really follow the young kids that are doing it at AEW. But it's a similar deal, similar storylines, a lot of bells and whistles for that one, a lot of crazy antics. And so I appreciate what they're doing. It's just hard for me to follow along. And again, I really don't have the time either.
Yeah, the kids doing the flying stuff now. In our day, like you could see Johnny Valentine having a match with Wahoo, putting a headlock on him and having those guys sell it for like 10, 12 minutes and excite the people. Now these guys have to risk breaking their neck doing all these flippity flop things, and it really, it doesn't matter. Moves don't matter. It's connecting with those characters as you would any, athlete, like a Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, whatever. People connect with them, for a variety of reasons and stuff. Yeah. Today's wrestling, it's hard because it's so far different than its roots. I don't know if they start taking away or trying to shorten baseball games, Major League Baseball games, because they're losing shedding viewers, you're going to be leaving those roots as well.
My question is this: does anybody ever do the sleeper hold anymore? I miss the sleeper hold. I miss it.
Lady wrestler in WWE's developmental with NXT that's got TV on Tuesday nights on the USA Network. Wendy Chu, her character's name is Sleepy Wendy Chu. She comes out in like pajamas and poodle things on her feet, like she just got out of bed, and she does like, one of her finishers is doing this, but she does the sleeper as well. And that's her whole character. She's just awoken and she's come out of her bed to wrestle.
But by and large, today's fans, they want to see, people being pile driven through burning tables and on top of broken glass. They don't want to see something that's you don't even see things like the figure 4 leg lock.
Well, Piper was the last guy to use the sleeper as an actual finisher and beat people with a sleeper. Roddy Piper, that's a judo. I don't know, Vern, if you ever came across Judo Jean LaBelle, who trained Ronda Rousey, not just to win gold medals in Olympic judo, also her MMA career. First was Strikeforce, based out of San Jose with Scott Coker, and then UFC, and then for pro wrestling. Judo Jean LaBelle was like one of those sleeper guys. And this guy used to do the wrestling interview the guys in the locker room in my territory, and nobody knew what a badass this guy was. Handpicked by Inoki to be his referee for Muhammad Ali. Inoki, do you remember that? 1976.
Yeah. Yep.
Ali Inoki, that crappy. It was horrible because
the start of the bout, he just hit the floor, and Ali didn't know what to make of it. Yeah.
Supposed to
be Ali. Inoki initially said he was going to put Ali over, and it was going to be choreographed with Gene as the conduit because he could speak Japanese, Judo Jean LaBelle. But instead, Inoki decided at the last minute, no, try to turn it into a shoot. But the sad thing about it was kicking at Ali's legs might have caused those blood clots and early health problems for the greatest of all time in Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, it was quite a disaster. But I also wanted to talk to you, Vern, about your comic book collection.
Yes, yep.
We have in common, and I think Mike's been a comic book collector in the past too, right?
I had the 3rd and 6th issues of Superman Action. I think that's what it was called, when I was a little kid. Of course, the horrific tale in the 60s of stepfather throwing out all of my baseball cards and my comic books, which today would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Sure. Yeah. I started in the fourth grade. A couple of kids, couple of twins, Keith and Kevin Tice, turned me on to the Incredible Hulk, and I was like, "What is this Hulk thing? Oh man, Hulk! Oh, he's great!" And so I grabbed a comic book. I kind of went down the rabbit hole, and then I remember I took my allowance and went down to a comic book store with my dad, and I got my first set of Incredible Hulks. And I just and back in those days, you could get a subscription, and you get one every month. So it'd be like, oh boy, in the mail, So I kind of went on from there and just bought some back issues, and then and so now, individually wrapped in plastic and preserved, I have all of the Tales to Astonish, where he split the issue with Submariner, Ant-Man. I have that all the way up to issue number 102 when Hulk got his own series. All way up into the 300s now. I have every one of those. And my most valuable comic, Russell knows this, is issue number 178. And it was the first ever appearance ever on this planet of Wolverine.
It's 181.
181, I'm sorry, 181. Yes.
Yes, and yes, that is quite the impressive. I mean, again, when he was introduced, Wolverine was not a big deal. It was, not until, they decided he became so popular in the late 80s, and then, the X-Men movie franchise made him big. I mean, hey, it's the same thing with me and Guardians of the Galaxy. I love Guardians of the Galaxy, and I bought them all up and all of their appearances when I was a kid, just because I liked the comic. I just happened to like the heroes. Did I know they were going to make a multi-million-dollar movie franchise out of them? No. And they just have to, and sometimes you luck out that way. What you like as a kid somehow becomes popular as an adult, and then people go retro for it and they want to pay big money. But I have never sold a single book that I've owned. And my parents would have thrown them out too, just if I hadn't taken the stand. But I said to my parents, look, you throw out my comics when I go to college, and I'm going to come back and throw out all the artwork that's in the house. So you can have your choice. You either leave my comics alone. That being said, my mom went right into my closet and cleaned out all my Star Wars toys.
Oh no! Oh my gosh! We have those from the kids. We have the Millennium Falcon. We have all these characters. We have all this stuff.
All my Micronauts went out the door. All my GI Joe stuff. Original GI Joe stuff that's worth like $500-600 a piece. I would have been happy to part with those. I'm not getting rid of any of my comics. To get rid of a comic, I've never sold a comic in my life. It would be like giving up my flesh. I'm actually giving it to my kids, and they can do whatever they want with it. But we lost some amazing artists this year. I don't know. Can you tell me, were you a big fan of Neil Adams and or George Perez?
As far as the illustrators of these comics?
Yeah.
I was a Herb Trimp guy.
Trippy,
you remember that? Yeah. Trippy or Trimp. Yeah. I was drawn to his illustrations. There's something about it. I don't know. His illustrations just kind of stuck out to me, and the storylines were strong. I don't know how Stan Lee and his team would just come up with these fresh storylines, but I just thought it was great. To me, I think the Hulk is the most misunderstood superhero that there is, and the
madder he gets, the stronger he gets.
Yeah. So I
on the chance that, like, even when you think he's down, he just gets even more upset, and then that makes him even harder to beat. And no one's found an answer for the Hulk yet,
And with Thunderbolt Ross constantly in hot pursuit.
And the leader.
Yep.
Yes. No, I've always been a big fan of Hulk, and he's in. But I had a very wide range of stuff, and I did like buy things that I thought would be speculative that turned out to not be worth anything. But the X-Men was the one that I latched on to as a kid. And I go all the way back. I have X-Men number 12. and I have Giant Size Annual #1, and I have a whole John Clone line. So
San
Yeah,
Francisco.
I'm a Marvel guy. I mean, no disrespect to DC, but I've always been a Marvel guy.
Vern, did you get a chance? I remember when I still lived there that the first San Francisco Comic Con was at Moscone, and Stan Lee and Ferrigno were there and others. I don't know if you. I'm sure you've interviewed.
I missed it. Because they had Marvel night at a Giants game, and Stan Lee came out, and for whatever reason, I was not scheduled to work that day, and I missed it, and I was just like, oh, I'll get him the next time, and then he passed away. Oh,
Well, who's running the Comic Cons? Are they down in San Jose now, in the Bay Area, since COVID restrictions might have lifted, or is anybody running them?
I don't think so. I mean, everybody I know flocks to San Jose. I mean, flocks to San Diego. Yeah, that's the
respectable. Yeah, LA's got a pretty respectable one.
LA has one, yeah, but San Diego is that's the big granddaddy.
Oh, well, Shatner was there at our LA one for like 2-3 days in a row. And, you can't get that guy to stop. Shatner. How about Shatner? You must have interviewed Shatner.
No, never met him. Never had a chance. Burt Reynolds, yes. Shatner, no.
You were in the Bay Area then. We had a NatB TV syndicators thing at Moscone in 92, I think it was, 92 and 93. And like everybody, Oprah, Joan Rivers, everybody had a show. They had the whole cast from Seinfeld. There was Siskel and Ebert, all these guys right in our neck of the woods. And I don't know if you went to that one. That was Burt Reynolds was there. He had his Evening Shade TV show for CBS, I think it was.
Yeah, I missed out on that. That was my third year at Cron. I didn't really run into A-listers until Planet Hollywood opened up in Union Square, and that's when I got a shot at Don Johnson, Schwarzenegger, all these guys just showed up for that opening. I can remember standing next to Schwarzenegger by this big food spread, and we're both looking at these blocks of cheese, and he looks at me and he says, "You like cheese?" And I went, "Yeah, I like cheese too." And he knocks one back. And then later on, I interviewed Arnold. He was the grand marshal for this charitable event down in Mountain View, and I was at Cron. It was an indoor racing. It was an indoor kart racing thing, and he was supposed to be there for the start of the race, and then all these nervous producers were running around. They were the ones that had the walkie-talkies and the headphones and all that kind of stuff. And we were supposed to have him on. We're in the commercial break. He's still not there. And then toward the end of the commercial break, there's this big commotion, and then Arnold's there. And he shows up and he's like, "Yeah, how you doing? Yeah." And then they whisk him over to me. And then just before we went on, I was like, "Arnold, man, you are the man. I didn't think you were going to make it," because he flew up from LAX. And he just goes, "Fast jet, fast limo driver." And so we did the interview, and I put the ball on the tee, and I go, "Arnold, man, we have the special event in Mountain View. For all kinds of charities, and I know your charity really benefits this, and I guess that's why you're here." Total ball on the tee, and he looks at me and he goes, "No, I came up to cast you for Twins too."
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
What about Steph Curry? Steph Curry at all those golf events? Like, I still try to get feeds or go to Cron's website. Down here you can go to their app or something and try to watch some of the news broadcasts. But Steph Curry's still tremendous global representative of the Bay Area, and he's at all those golf events. I don't know.
Yes, I had him in Lake Tahoe. There was an American Century Championship golf event in South Lake Tahoe, and I got him. He was playing in a group with his dad Del and his brother Seth. And after his round was over, he came on over and we did a few minutes together. And they were still basking in the glory of winning the NBA championship. So that was good. Yeah, that was a good haul for me. I got him. I got Jerry Rice. I got Aaron Rodgers. I got Derek Carr. I got CC Sabathia. I got Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley was great.
The The way he feels about the Warriors, I don't know if you were giving him any grief.
He just said he just said they had a good run, and it's fun going back and forth with the fans up there. I mean, he said all the right things. But every interview I did, I had this step stool that makes me 6'3". So I wasn't staring at his nosebleeds, at his nose hairs as I was talking to him.
Let me ask, if Durant hadn't left, and one or two of the players getting injured, I don't think we would have had if Durant had stayed with the Warriors, I don't think we would have had as many lean years. I don't know.
I agree. If he hadn't left, they still would have run the table.
Yeah. And now they're back.
So now I have two big questions for you for the remainder of the interview. One is, Vern, if you could hit a home run, throw a touchdown pass, dunk a basketball, or hit a hockey goal, hit a puck into a goal, what would be the one sports thing you'd want to do in front of like 1 million fans?
Oof, boy! A regular season game? Or we're talking like a
for the championship, for
championship on the line. Wow. Yeah. Oof. I'm gonna go. Gosh, championship on the line. God, I mean, you got to hit a walk. You got to hit a walk-off homer, right? I mean, you got to do that, boy. To not only win the game, but win the World Series on a walk-off. Oh my gosh, I'd never pay for a meal again, ever.
Okay.
I'll go walk-off homer.
Okay. I could have said World Cup. Kick the goal for the World Cup. To go ahead 1-0. With
the thing about that, I mean, that's fine, but over here in the U.S., once the World Cup was over, what did everybody do? They just went back to their regular routine.
They watched football.
You hit a walk off to win the World Series. You're legendary for life.
It's all up to everyone's own interpretation. Making that final dunk, in Game 7 of an NBA World Championship or something, or catching the winning touchdown in the bowl championship, thing for college. Everyone has their own relative thing, but it's good to know that you'd want to knock one out. I think deep down, I think baseball is your greatest love. I think you love all the sports so much that you cover, but I always hear you talk with more passion when you talk about baseball.
Hey man, great sport, America's pastime. I mean, even today, this is 2022 or the end of it. People still marvel at Travis Ishikawa's home run to win the pennant, and that was years ago.
Ish the fish, absolutely. Now, the other question that I have for you is, if you could interview anyone, alive or dead, go back in time and interview, who would you want to interview the most?
In sports?
Yeah, no, anywhere, anytime, for anything.
I'm gonna throw you a curveball, Mr. Jackman. I'm gonna give you Bugsy Siegel, and I'll tell you why. I'll go back and get Bugsy Siegel, especially if I have the power to go back and get him. I would go back and get him, bring him back to Las Vegas, interview him on the Strip, and go, look at this. This was your vision. This is the idea you had. You didn't live long enough to really kind of see it to fruition, but this was your idea. This is, what do you think? I would love to get what he thought about it.
You'd probably say, what's my cut of this whole thing?
Yeah. He give me a Ric Flair. He go $500.
Greatest ring announcer ever. This is a photo I took from 1970. Neil Moskowitz won a hair versus mask against Bull Ramus. He's shaving him, but above Moskowitz's shoulder, Jimmy Lennon Sr., I think the greatest ring announcer, and his son is doing justice to him in MMA. Well, some MMA and boxing. But Jimmy Lennon was not on the global scale. He was an LA presence for us, but a lot of people around the world only saw him in movies or like the Jack Benny TV show, something like that. I don't know if you ever heard him call, because he used to call do color for us with the guy doing play-by-play, Dick Lane.
Yeah, you're talking about ring announcer. You're not talking about introducing in this corner it's this and this corner
Well,
it's
that was
this.
what he did. He also would do color announcing commentary for boxing in Los Angeles. But the ring announcing, he would get the pronunciation of Korean, Japanese, Hispanic fighters perfectly dead on, which his son replicates now, Jimmy Jr. I don't know if you had much experience with him, but what a great voice. I think he was in one of the Rocky movies, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, you talk about pronunciations of names. That's my big pet peeve. I just cringe like fingers on a blackboard when an announcer gets the name wrong. So when I was even in the local level, when I was a swim meet announcer, I would make it a point to go to the other team and make sure I had the correct pronunciation, because these swimmers, it's their 1 second of fame where you get to announce their name, and you really just don't want to screw it up.
Wow.
Mark of a true pro, and that's what Vern Glenn is, true professional.
Yeah, but those World Cup games, boy, you gotta type it out phonetically because you want to get that, or you're gonna get calls.
So Vern, what are the rest of your plans for the holidays include?
As of doing this show, I did this interview this morning. I got a little work to do today, and then I have the rest of the day off. Tomorrow's the big day. Tomorrow is Saturday. It's the 49er game against the Washington Commanders. It is on my station. We have a big post-game show right after that, and then we have a half-hour Saturday night show that we're doing on top of that, along with the regular newscast. So Saturday's an action-packed day. I'll come home from that. I'll get home about 12:30 in the morning. I'll get the slow cooker going. I'll throw everything in the pot for chili for Christmas Day. And then on Christmas Day, we have 2 shows, a 5 and an 11. So I'll stay home for as long as I can, and then I got to go in and do the 5. May come home in between shows and then do the 11, and then I'm off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week.
Nice, that's wonderful. Mike, do you have any other questions you'd like to ask Vern?
I was trying to think earlier if so I know Vern has probably done his share of Pebble Beach. You ever interviewed Bill Murray in the?
Oh yeah. In the earlier days when he was accessible. Now the last couple of years he's been kind of a get off my lawn type guy. He'll pick his spots as to when to be funny and when to be serious or aloof or whatever. He's just been doing it for so long. But Bill still comes around, and he's got a pretty decent game for as little time as he gets to actually play the game because he's so busy all the time. But
remember that one year though when he and Jacobson went right through? I think it was a Dr. Jacobson. They went through, and I think they won at least.
They won it. They won. Yeah, they won it. I think you might get a 5-year exemption if you win it. But Murray comes around all the time. I forget what the buy-in is. Used to be $12,000. It might be a little bit more than that. Your buy-in, and your handicap has to be no worse than 25 if you're a celebrity to play in that event.
I'm so old.
And this past year, it was devoid of a lot of pro golfers because the Live Tour had started, and a lot of those golfers were in Saudi Arabia playing that tour, and so you had guys like Tom Hogan who won it, but then we had Mookie Wilson, we had him, and then Gretzky played. I mean, there were a lot of
George Lopez is there every year, I think.
No, we missed George last year. We missed George last couple of years. I don't know why, but he's back. He's back with a new show now. So I don't know. Maybe now that he's on the radar, maybe he'll play again. We'll find out. We'll find out in February when the tour comes around again.
When it was still a Crosby, go back and check out all these guys totally inebriated. Dean Martin would come in there with Phil Harris to the Crosby.
Sure.
Them's were the days.
Yeah.
Way insane before the Bill Murray kind of brought it back a little. But that's too
right.
bad. Hope he's funny again and not not so offish anymore. No, that's about it. I just want to celebrate Vern Glenn because still remember him. We love him down here in Southern Cal. Miss the great voice of the North.
And speaking of Southern California, one of my great fond memories is doing a lot of live shots in an event in LA and having Jim Hill right next to me.
Oh yeah,
doing a show at the same time.
Not a professional down here. Yeah, they've got some legends down here. Not quite as many as the Bay Area. I miss all the guys up there. Yourself, Michael Finney, all the people, specialty guys. Gosh, Beal at 7. But down here they've got the most insane weather guy. This guy, we always have had insane weather people at the ABC affiliate, but his name is escaping me right now. But he's white, but he signs off every single time, even going into break, where they're just hyping what he's going to be saying. He does the 1968 Power Fest.
Oh, okay.
What the hell is this guy's name? I'll think about it while Russ is talking.
But you know his shtick. So that's what you remember.
They used to have a guy, this Dr. George Fishbeck, do the weather in the 70s, and he was like a character of a professor, a mad science professor. And I'll think of it in a sec. Let me look this up. Bruce, go ahead and start talking because I'm going to look this up.
Well, yeah, we're getting close to wrapping everything up, and I don't want to take away from Vern's precious free time when he's not doing interviews. And it's just, I guess, kind of a fun role reversal to you and I are always across the mic from each other when we are doing Sports Econ 101, and I never get to turn the table on you and actually get to interview you myself.
Dallas Raines is the guy's name.
Dallas Raines. I'll look him up.
He's
look him up.
Hilarious. The Black Power salute, but he's a white dude.
I really want to thank you for being on the show today. It was really fun. And, if you ever have anything you want to promote or ever, want to job out wrestling or comics or Rick and Morty, or you have it, we're always here to have you on as a guest.
I know we're running out of time. You got to wrap up the show. But the next time, I really would like to know more of the great history of Ricky Johnson from Hayward, who's the father of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'd love to know more about that. So
I've covered the guy's career at the Cow Palace.
There you go.
Up with High Chief Peter Mavia, with Pat Patterson, they held the world tag straps. Rocky Soulman Johnson was a hell of a guy and super funny in the car riding around with him.
That's awesome.
Total legend. He has a brother or a half brother named Ricky out of Toronto, who's a pro wrestler too. That's maybe where you got the name Rocky Soulman Johnson and his brother Ricky.
Oh, okay.
They held the tag straps in Canada and I think at Mid-Atlantic and Memphis.
I'll also tell you about the time I got beat up by the Harlem Heat. That'll be a tease for the audience for the next show.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You have a great holiday for you and your family. And I guess I'll be seeing you on Tuesday for our regular show.
Yeah, our normal 10 a.m. tea time or 9 a.m. tea time.
Yeah. Right. All right. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy Christmas to you. Happy Christmas and all holidays to you.
Good night, America.